Job chapter 25. Job 25, 1. Then answered Bildad the Shuhite and said, alright, Bildad means confusing by mingling love. His name also can mean son of contention. So here it is, we see one that's confusing by mingling love. You know, this could speak to spiritual idolatry in all actuality. You know, mingling of love. You know, son of contention, contending with, you know, which one to love, if you would. You know, and he was a Shuhite, meaning wealth. You know, so he was wealthy. You know, maybe that could have been one of the things that he was contending on mingling his love with, you know, or trying to decide which one to love. But anyways, his name, we have one that's confused by mingling love, contentious one that's of wealth, and he's speaking. And in verse 2, he says, dominion and fear are with him. He make peace in his high places. Is there any number of his armies? And upon whom doeth not his light arise? How then can man be justified with Elohim? Or how can he be clean that is born of a woman? Behold, even the moon, and it shineth not. Yea, the stars are not pure in his sight. How much less than is a worm, and the Son of Man, which is a worm. Whoa. He's kind of strong, wasn't he?
Yes.
You know, of course, he was speaking to Job. And I thought it was particularly interesting. I figured I'd better pull it out, that these two words translated as worm are actually different. The first one is Rima, number 7415, which means a maggot or type of worm in the sense of breeding. And the second one is Tolah, number 8438, the crimson grub. And this should actually ring a bell, you know, because this is the very same worm that is spoken of in, I believe, it's Psalms 22. And it actually, you know, is a picture of Messiah. You know, I should have probably put the whole little study up there on this crimson grub. You know, this is where they got the color red from. You know, was from this worm. You know, but this worm epitomizes, its life epitomizes the ministry of Messiah. What this worm would do is it would climb up a tree when it was time to give birth. It would climb up a tree and attach itself to the tree, you know, even as the Messiah was attached to the torture stake. And it would do so knowing that it would never come back down, you know. And while it was up there, it would actually give birth to its many children that would literally feed off of its body. You know, it would sacrifice its body as food for the unborn that it was about to give birth to. You know, and of course we remember right before the Messiah went up on that tree, you know, he told his apostles, you know, eat this bread, which is my body broken for you. You know, drink of this wine, which is given as a renewed covenant for you. He was doing the very same thing. You know, in just about every aspect, this worm epitomizes the ministry of Messiah. You know, it would go up there and its body would form a hard shell to protect the babies once they're born, you know, from the elements until they can actually eat of the parent's body until they were mature enough to break forth, you know, on their own. But really a beautiful picture, you know, of the ministry of Messiah entailed within this worm, called the crimson grub. So it's two different words, worm here, and I thought that was revelatory. But we see here Bildad going in kind of hard on Job. Job, of course, insisting that he's innocent, and that he hasn't done anything, to warrant, all the catastrophes that have been plaguing him. And, and here it is, old Bildad is coming real strong, telling Job he can't be justified with Elohim. You can't, how can you be clean? How can you be justified? But we know that even through the word of Elohim, we can be clean and we can be justified, through the word of Elohim, i.e. the Messiah, and his teachings and instructions. We can be just that, via the Son of Man, the Tolah, the crimson grub, who has broken his body that we might be saved. Well, so much for Job chapter 25. We're going into Job chapter 26. It's still going to be short. But it just wasn't going to be that short. That was like wasn't even 5 minutes, was it? Yeah. 10 minutes. All right. Job chapter 26, verse 1. It says, "But Job answered and said," now here it is. We had to introduce Job, and we're in the book of Job. How are we not going to do a chapter that even mentions him? But here it is, chapter 26. It says, "But Job answered." He's responding to Bildad. And, of course, Job's name means persecuted or hated. And he's a beautiful picture of an overcomer. If you want to see, what this walk is really about, check out Job. He has a lot to offer in that regard. The more that you're loved by Yah, the more you will be hated and persecuted by the world. And Job's name epitomizes that. It even means persecuted or hated. Job 26:2 says, "How hast thou helped him that is without power? How savest thou the arm that have without strength?" Or that have no strength. I think the King James say. I should have put that back. Now, when I began to look at this, I began to see something, it could have been worded a whole lot better. As we see him that is, and that have within this verse, is grayed out and italicized, meaning that it's been inserted by the translator. This word power here is koach, number 3581, meaning to be firm, speaking to strength or ability. And so here it is. I took liberty to retranslate it, and you can hardly tell these two reds apart, huh? On my computer, they look a lot different, but they look pretty similar here, don't they? Well, it's different. Just know that it's different. Okay, this is the darker one is the retranslated, and usually it'll have purple in it, so that's how you can tell. Okay, so Job 26:2 retranslated. "How hast thou helped without ability?" Is what Job is saying. How hast thou helped me without ability? You don't have the ability to help me. How hast thou helped without ability? How savest thou with an arm without strength? How you gonna save me? You don't have no strength in your arm. You're too weak to help me. You don't have the ability, and you don't have the strength. Job 26:3 says, "How hast thou counseled him that have no wisdom? And how hast thou plentifully declared the thing as it is?" That's the King James. Now, when we look up this word "no," as in no wisdom, it's low, number 3808, meaning no, meaning not, no, without. Matter of fact, this is the same word that's translated without up here in verse 2, and no in the King James in the latter part of verse 2. So we see it's translated again as no in verse 3. It is lo, number 3808, and it means not, no, or without. You know. Now, the word declared here, as in verse 3, is yada, number 3045, meaning to know, to have knowledge of, you know, meaning knowledge. And they've translated it as declared here. And the word, the thing, or the two words, the thing, is tushia, number 8454, meaning to substantiate, to support. You know, so we retranslated this thing, and this is how it came out. Job 26:3 retranslated. How hast thou counseled without wisdom, and plentiful knowledge substantiated? So Job is asking, how is you trying to give counsel without wisdom and plentiful plentiful knowledge that is substantiated? You know, you don't have any substantiated knowledge, you don't have any wisdom, but yet you're trying to counsel me. These guys, they're not playing, you know, they're not taking it light on one another, are they? You know, they going kind of hard. They going in on one another. Well. You know, so, you know, we see old Bildad came kind of strong, but, you know, Job is coming right back at him. You know, how is thou counsel without wisdom and plentiful knowledge substantiated? You talking, in other words, he's telling them, you know, you just talking out the side of your neck. You don't have no wisdom. You're just saying stuff you can't substantiate. You know what's going on here.
I need some truth.
Yeah, Job, like, you're not helping. You know, and then in 26:4, we have an Aleph Tav, you know, which speaks of Yahushua. Now check this verse out. You know, this is translated in the King James. It's translated to whom hast thou uttered words, and whose spirit came from thee. Okay. Now, when we look up these three words, hast thou uttered, we see they're translated from the Hebrew word to God, number 5046, meaning to tell, make known, declare. You know, so when we retranslate this, knowing that the Aleph Tav represents Yahushua, it can read, Yahushua declared to me these words, and whose spirit came from thee. You know, so in other words, you know, he's saying what I'm saying and what I'm about to say has been declared to me by Yahushua. You know, that's whose spirit done gave me, you know, the words that I have, but whose spirit came from thee? You know, what spirit you speaking of? You know, and then he goes on to say, you know, in the King James it says, dead things are formed from under the waters and the inhabitants thereof. But when we look up this word dead, it isn't the normal word dead. It's actually Rapha, number 7496, and it means a ghost of the dead, or spirits, or shades. And shades are, they were considered to be the souls of men after their separation from the body. You know, and that was an ancient term that they used to call them. Now, the word formed here is cool, number 2342, and it means to twist or whirl in pain. So we put these things into the verse and retranslate it, and Job 26:5 reads a little differently. As shades or souls of the dead twist or whirl in pain from under the waters and are the inhabitants thereof. So in other words, what Job is doing is he's accusing, he's suggesting or implying, you know, that Bildad is hearing from, you know, that he's conferring with spirits of the dead. He's not getting his information from Elohim. You know, and many people are doing that, you know, still today. You know, we even see television shows where they're calling up spirits of the dead. You know, and, you know, you want to talk to your dead mom or your dead husband or whatever, you know, and they're doing these things. You know, even as we read about in Samuel with the witch of Endor, in which Saul calls up the spirit of Shemuel, right? You know, so, but here it is, Job is saying that these souls of the dead, these shades, they twist or whirl in pain from under the waters, and that they are actually the inhabitants thereof. You know, the depths of the waters throughout Scripture is likened unto the grave. you know, in which it is. It's a type of grave. You know, there's countless people that done died in the seas, you know, and that watery grave is their grave. You know, so you have graves in the seas and the waters as well as on land. You know, so this is what Job is talking about. He's saying, you know, Yahushua has declared to me these words I'm speaking, but whose spirit came from you? You know, you dealing with some dead spirit, some ghost of the dead, some soul of the dead, which is something that in antiquity as well as now that a lot of cultures did. They actually called on their dead ancestors. You know, when they needed help, when they were in trouble, they would call on their dead ancestors. You know, you can even see this if you look at some of the old Western movies. You know, and you'll see the Indians calling on, you know, their dead ancestors. You know, smoking the peace pipe and doing a little dance. You know, calling on their ancestors for help. You know, this is something, you know, to tell them things and to, you know, show them the future and things of this nature. You know, so this is what Job was alluding to that was going on with Bildad, you know. And he's telling them, you know, where these things come from. This is what you're doing, but, you know, this is where this come from. You know, they twist the world in pain from under the waters, and they are the inhabitants thereof. And then he goes on in verse 26, he says, hell is naked before him, and destruction have no covering. That's what it says in King James. But we find that this word hell is Sheol, number 7585, which speaks to the abode of the dead. So now he talked about the watery grave. Now he's talking about the place of the dead on land, which is Sheol. Okay, then he says before, this word before is neged, and it's number 5048, meaning a front, specifically a counterpart or mate. And then we have the word that's translated as destruction is Abaddon, number 11, meaning the destroyer. Now, you know, this stands out to me. You know, now they just translated it as destruction, but it stands out to me because this is actually the name of a pagan deity. This is the name of an unclean spirit that we read about in Revelations that speaks about going to be released from Sheol, that's going to be released and once again be upon the earth. You know, this is the one that actually becomes king. You know, he is king of the locust army, and he comes forth in the last days, and you know, and he rules and reigns and exalts himself above everything that is called Elohim. You know, so I thought this was very revelatory that his name is actually mentioned here, because you don't see it anywhere else besides Revelations as far as being interpreted as such. You know, but this is one of the places where it actually is, and of course they're talking about Sheol, in which he was, you know, head over. And it says, in Sheol, well, we retranslated, Job 28:6 says, naked is Sheol's counterpart or mate, Abaddon, and that is the destroyer, and he have no covering. So in other words, he's telling Bildad, you know, that, you know, whether you dealing with spirits that done came up out of the watery grave, or if you're dealing with the ones that done came out of the earthly grave, you know, whereas they have Abaddon as their mate, you know, whereas Sheol has Abaddon as their mate or as their king, you know, the destroyer. You know, you think that, you know, that he has a covering for you. He has no covering for you. You know, and that's what a lot of these people think, you know, when they call on their dead ancestors, you know, they think that, you know, they're covering them. You know, that they're going to protect them and watch over and guide and keep them, you know, from the perils of the world. You know, but in all actuality, this is what Job is saying. You know, he's saying, you know, and actually, like they have hell is naked, literally in the text. Naked comes before the word hell, and that's why you see it retranslated as such. Naked is Sheol's counterpart or Sheol's mate, Abaddon. So naked is their king. The king of the dead is naked. You know, he's the destroyer, and he has no covering, so he can't protect anyone. You know, he can't protect anyone because he's naked himself before Elohim. You know, so we go on to verse 7, Job 26:7. It says, he stretched out the north over the empty place and hangeth the earth upon nothing. That's what it says in the King James. When we look up this word north, it's Zaphon, number 6828, and it literally means to be hidden. This is a very odd word in all actuality. It's translated north everywhere in Scripture, you know, that is used. But it literally means something that's hidden or dark. And then the reason that it's translated north is because, you know, they thought they didn't know what was past the far north. You know, it was this vast wilderness. You know, they didn't know what was past that because no one never made it past it. You know, so they knew it was like, you know, this desolate place, you know, and they thought that if you kept going far enough, you'd fall off the end of the earth. You know, and that's when, you know, of course they was thinking that the world was flat, you know, that the more ignorant ones. You know, but point being, you know, this word north speaks of a place that's gloomy and unknown. That's dark, gloomy, and unknown. You know, so he says stretched out the north over the empty place and hangeth the earth upon nothing. This word nothing is Beli, number 1097, and it means, you know, it's actually come from a compound word, you know, number 1097 meaning failure, and the Hebrew word ma, number 4100, which is an interrogative, you know, meaning what, you know, what or who, you know, some type of question. So we had this retranslated, Job 26:7, and it reads, and he stretcheth out the gloomy unknown over the empty or desolate places, and hangeth the earth upon the unknown. You know, so in other words, what he hangs the earth on is a mystery. We can't see it nothing holding it up. We can't see nothing suspending it, you know, keeping it in suspension. You know, but we know that it is kept. Job 26:8 says, and he bindeth up the waters, King James, he bindeth up the waters in his thick clouds, and the cloud is not rent under him. These thick clouds actually, you know, speak to dark clouds. And verse 9, 26:9 of Job, he holdeth back the face of his throne and spreadeth his cloud upon it. These three words, he holdeth back, is translated from the Hebrew word kaz, number 270, and it literally means to grasp, to take hold, or seize possession of something. You know, so we retranslate that, Job 26:9, to read, he take hold of the face of his throne and spreadeth his cloud upon it. And then we have verse 10, Job 26:10. And it reads, he hath compassed the waters with bounds until the day and night come to an end. And we had to retranslate that because there's a word that was actually in there that didn't get translated in the King James, and it was pane, which means space. So it more literally, it should read, he compassed the face of the waters with boundaries until the day and night come to an end. In other words, the tide is not going to come in no further than what he has directed it to, than the boundaries that he's made. It's not going to go out any further than the boundaries in which he has laid. You know, it has boundaries. It can't do what it want to do. And those boundaries are set in place even until, you know, as long as day and night, they're set in place. You know, so Job 26:11 and 12. 26:11 says, the pillars of heaven tremble and are astonished at his reproof. And verse 12 says, he divideth the sea with his power, and by his understanding he smiteth through the proud. So we're going to take a look at this verse 12. We're going to take a look at some of these words. We're going to take a look at divideth, he smiteth through, and was translated as the proud. So when we look at divideth, we see that it's raga, number 7280, and it means to act in an instant, to stir up. But it also can mean to rest, to repose. Okay? And he that smiteth through is makatz in the Hebrew, number 4272, and it means to shatter, to wound severely. And the word proud that was translated there comes from Rekab, number 7293, meaning a blusterer, that is, one who causes strong winds, one who blows strong winds. So, retranslating Job 26:12, it reads, he repulsed the sea with his power, and by his understanding shattered the blusterer, that is, he who blows strong winds. And it also can mean a blusterer could be someone who speaks loudly in an arrogant or bullying manner. You know, so when you think about what happened to Job, you know, and how Satan came at him, you know, you read in that account that's after Yah gave Satan to go ahead, that strong winds came. Remember that? Strong winds came and done damage and caused his family to be killed. You know, so here it is. He's saying he repulsed the sea with his power, and by his understanding shattered the blusterer, that is, he who blows the strong winds, even Hasatan himself. Then we have Job 26:13. It says, by his spirit he have garnished the heavens and have formed the crooked serpent. And we're going to take a look at the word garnished, formed, and crooked. You know, the word garnished is shifra, number 8235, meaning brightness. You know, they translated it garnished, means brightness. What they translated as formed is kalal, number 2490, meaning to profane, to defile, to pollute, to desecrate. It also can mean to begin, or it can mean pain, to wound, to dissolve. And we have crooked. What's translated as crooked is bariyak, number 1281, meaning a fugitive, as fleeing or wandering, if you would. Okay, now retranslated, we have Job 26:13, which reads, by his spirit he has brightened the heavens, his hand hath wounded the fugitive serpent. That's quite a bit different, isn't it? Job 26:14. Lo, these are parts of the ways. These are parts of his ways, but how little a portion is heard of him. But the thunder of his power, who can understand? Okay, so that's the whole of Job 26. And when we put the retranslations all together, you know, we're going to put them all together and see how it reads. Now, you know, beginning with verse 1, we have, but Job answered and said, how hast thou helped without ability? How savest thou with an arm without strength? How hast thou counseled without wisdom and plentiful knowledge, which has been substantiated? Whenever you counsel someone, you should make sure that you have these two things. You should, or at least one or the other. You know, you should have some type of wisdom. You know, and if you don't have no wisdom, you should have some plenty of knowledge that's been substantiated. You know, prayerfully, you have both. You have wisdom along with plenty of knowledge that has been substantiated. Amen? You know, that gives the best counsel. So here it is, he asks him, Bildad, how is thou counsel without wisdom and plentiful knowledge which has been substantiated? Verse 4, Yahushua declared unto me these words, and whose spirit came from thee? Shades, ghost of the dead that twist in world and pain from under the waters and are the inhabitants thereof. Naked is Sheol's counterpart or mate, Abaddon. Naked is king of Sheol, that is the destroyer, he have no covering. If you trusting in him, you trusting in the wrong one, because he has no covering. You know, but Yahushua, he stretch about the gloomy unknown over the empty places or the desolate places, and hangeth the earth upon the unknown. He bindeth up the waters in his dark clouds, i.e. the rain clouds, and the cloud is not rent under them. He take hold of the face of his throne and spread his cloud under it. Awesome man we serve, isn't it? He have compassed the face of the waters with boundaries until the day and the night come to an end. They're not going to go no further than what he has prescribed. The pillars of heaven tremble and are astonished at his reproof. You know, the biggest and the baddest of them all in the heavens, you know, the pillars of heaven, they even tremble and are astonished at his reproof when he comes at them to correct them. Verse 12, he reposed the sea. He causes the sea to become calm with his power. And by his understanding, he shattered the blusterer, that is, the one who blows strong winds. You know, so when he tells the sea to be still, as we seen him do in the Brit Kadashah, right? When he tells the sea to be still, they have to be still. And if the one who's causing the strong wind continue to blow, then he shatters them with his understanding. You know, they don't want to mess with him. By his spirit he hath brightened the heavens. Hence we read in Genesis 1:1, his spirit hovered over the face of the deep. Amen. You know, and he said, let there be light. And there was light. Says his hand has wounded the fugitive serpent. You know, and soon it's going to be more than just a wound. It's going to be done for. Lo, these are parts of his ways. You know, this word parts really meant just like the corner or just the edge. You know, these are just the corner, just the edge of his ways. But how little a portion is heard of him. We don't know nothing but a smidgen of how great our El is. But the thunder of his power, who can understand it? Not a soul. Not a soul. All we can do is guess at best. You know, just imagine. You look around you, you look in the earth, and you see, we're told that the earth declares his glory. You know, and it's made after the pattern of the heavens. And when we look and just see how awesome, you know, the earth is, and how everything, you know, is situated within it, and it all has its own role to play. You know, when you start looking into, you know, biology and the ecosystem, you know, and you start to see that if one thing was moved out of place, it causes a whole domino effect. You know, that it's truly perfect. You know, if you move one thing out of place, such as the bees, you take away the bees and the whole system begin to fall apart. You know, that's how awesome he is. That's how awesome this work that he's done is. You know, so who can understand him? Certainly not us. You know, so praise be to the King. That is all I have for you today. Pray it was a blessing to you.